Hey, what's going on people? In this video I'll be showcasing the best bosses and locations to farm for legendaries in Borderlands 3. Every legendary farm worth your time features in this video, and I'll be rating them by their difficulty and quality and amount of loot they drop. I'll also let you know about any notable drops connected to each farm and give you tips on completing them quickly. And let's get farming. Before we do, just some quick tips on maximizing your legendary output, because I want you guys to get maximum bang for your buck. First, you'll want to set your mayhem level to mayhem 10 and make sure loot explosion is activated as a modifier. Then if you have it, you want to make sure you equip the Shaluta artifact, which you can get from the director's cut as part of the Welcome to Pandora Vault card. The Shaluta generally needs another enemy to proc its effect, but sometimes it doesn't, and I'll let you know when. Lastly, you want to activate the Bloody Harvest event for extra legendaries through badass and loot ghosts. However, this will replace many of your anointments with terror ones, so if you don't have much iridium to reroll them to the ones you want, then activating the cartel event is the next best option. It's also worth noting that you can only reroll terror anointments if the event is active. So now that that's out of the way, let's crack into it. We open with Katagawa Jr, who you fight around here at the top of Atlas HQ. Katagawa Jr is an incredibly easy fight, made that way because his health bar does not scale correctly, so you only have to deplete his shield to be done with him. There's not many bosses in the game you'll be able to complete as quickly as him, although he does take a while to die. He also has an increased chance to drop the Sandhawk, which will make defeating other bosses on this list a lot easier. Next are the bosses from the Guardian Takedown, Anathema the Relentless, and Scourge the Invincible Martyr. This is by far and away the most difficult farm on this list that you should be aware of. Notably, Anathema drops the Stinger, a pinnacle melee shield. Scourge on the other hand doesn't have anything unique like that, but he does have the Globetrotter, a fantastic launcher, and the Smog, a pretty decent SMG. That's not often enough to justify the 30+ minutes it takes to complete a run of the Guardian Takedown, but it is made better by the fact that both of these bosses can drop Mayhem 6+ weapons. Those are some of the best weapons in the game, and they can also be found here. To Killavolt now, who you can fight in Letra City after completing the quest Kill Killavolt, which Moxie gives you aboard Sanctuary. Killavolt can be a little annoying to farm because he does disappear during the fight, but if you use high damage single shot weapons and manage to defeat him before he can do that, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. The bang you should be hunting is the Monarch, but you'll need to be on Mayhem 6 or higher. It's a top tier weapon, especially on fadeaway flak, and you can farm Killavolt repeatedly by killing yourself after defeating him. Now for a unique and rewarding farm, that is of course Dinklebot, who you fight around here in Skywell 27. Fighting Dinklebot is trivial, and they'll drop ludograms which you can trade into Crazy Oil aboard Sanctuary for a chance at a Butcher or Lucian's Call. They drop 50% of the time, and you can farm Dinklebot on no Mayhem and redeem them on Mayhem 10 or 11 to get instant access to top quality weapons. Now for Graveward, everyone's favourite base game punching bag. The fight is straightforward and the loot reflects that, with Graveward best used as a world drop farming source. That's not to say his loot pool is bad though. The Lob is a perfectly decent shotgun, but the world drops hold greater potential. Made even better by the fact that the Shaluta's effect will be active after you kill him, netting you a more bountiful reward. Now to Tom and Zam, who you fight around here in Heart's Desire, as part of the Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC. Tom and Zam are a pair of twin mini-bosses that spawn together, but if you only kill one, you can teleport to the travel point close by to repeat the farm indefinitely. That'll help increase your legendaries per minute for console players, and they're also dedicated to dropping the Soul Render, the best splash damage assault rifle in the game. Unfortunately, the Shaluta doesn't work here, but this farm's infinite potential helps to make up for that. Moving on to Scraptrap's nest, located as part of the Handsome Jackpot DLC in the compactor at this point of the map. If you're rocking the Bloody Harvest, the Shaluta, and the Loot Explosion modifier, this farm can be incredibly lucrative. That's all thanks to the sheer amount of enemies that spawn, which can often bring with them some loot ghosts. To maximize its efficiency, I suggest only completing the first phase of the fight and then heading out to the back of the arena. If you drop down the ledge and then climb back up, you'll find the fight resets as you enter. It's a great farm that can be repeated to your heart's content, offering up DLC and base game world drops. The lack of save and quit needed makes it incredibly efficient, and a Breath of the Dying, Reflux or Hive are perfect weapons for this arena. The Cistern of Slaughter is a great farm that can be repeated. It's a beast focused circle of slaughter which you can access around here in the Meridian Metroplex. Here you'll fight enemies from all walks of life. Racks, Skag, Jabbers, Spiderants, they're all here. It's a great base game world drop farming spot, especially if you've got the Shaluta equipped and the Bloody Harvest event active. It's also not too difficult, but those racks can be incredibly annoying, so I like to bring in my trusty needle gun. The Agonizer 9000 is another great base game farm target who you can find around here in the guts of Carnivora. This mechanized marvel drops more legendaries than most, and that's thanks to the Shaluta working on them. The main draw of this fight is the Backburner, obtained if you're on Mayhem 6 or above. Its drop rate is incredibly poor, but that'll be made up for by the sheer amount of world drops you'll gain. And you'll want to bring a corrosive weapon to make your time here that much better. Now for the Seer, who you fight during the Mysteriously a questline. This boss is pretty chonky and requires a lot of walking to set it up, but once you're there, they provide a smorgasbord of director's cut gear. You'll want to be triggering the Shaluta to get the most out of this fight, allowing you to farm for a Revolter and Free Radical at the same time. I wouldn't go into this one unprepared though, especially with the long walk, that'll really hurt your knees. Moving on to Amach, another DLC 2 farm target. This one can be found around in this area of Curse Haven. Heading to this area of the map will cause enemies to spawn, and once you've killed enough, Amach will appear out of the portal. He's got more health than a regular enemy, but the fight is still relatively straightforward. And if you can kill him in 15 seconds, this is the best spot to farm Guns, Love and Tentacles gear. The bonuses from our artifact will massively increase the amount of world drops you get, making it the best farm in the Guns, Love and Tentacles DLC if we're not after a soul render and we can deal with the load times. Moving on to the Slaughter Shaft, one of the Circle of Slaughters, which you can access through this point in Conrad's Hold. The Slaughter Shaft is the most difficult of all the Circle of Slaughters, but is the most rewarding, thanks to the many badass COV enemies held within. Each one of them has a high chance to drop a legendary weapon, that chance made even greater with the Shaluta equipped and the Loot Explosion Mayhem modifier. Not many places in the game can rival it for the sheer amount of loot. And the high volume of badass enemies help to summon badass ghosts, which increase your chances more. For maximum efficiency, you'll want to repeatedly farm its final round. Defeat Titan, its boss, for that 500 Iridium, and then teleport to the start point and begin again. Now to Freddie the Traitor, another farm belonging to the first DLC. This one takes place in the VIP tower. Now this farm does take a little bit of setup. You need to defeat all the loader bots in this area before Freddy spawns, but once he does you can rinse and repeat simply by defeating him and travelling to the start point. When you make your way back, he will be there again, remarkably at level 2, so all you have to do is look at him funny and he'll explode. With loot drops maximized, he drops a ridiculous amount of legendary weapons. And you can always proc the Shaluta by defeating Petunia or Dandelion before you set your sights on him. Farming this for a few short minutes will litter the floor in that orange gold. Granted, much of that will be his dedicated drop, the auto aim, but it's the perfect place to hunt DLC 1 class mods with standard world drops thrown in. Moving on to Hemovorous the Invincible, the game's final raid boss, which you fight in Darkthirst Dominion as part of the director's cut. This fight is incredibly difficult if you're not well geared, but the loot you get as a result can be of incredibly high quality. I say can be because it's all down to RNG. Hemovorous is guaranteed to drop the Company Man, an artifact that boosts the stats of a particular manufacturer. A gold roll one of these is amazing, but the chances of that are incredibly small. You'll even see them spit out loot from the base game and Director's Cut world drop pool, and you only need to pay the Iridium entry fee once by defeating Hemovorous before travelling to the beginning of the arena. Wotan is another great legendary farm, the final boss of the Maliwan Takedown. It's not the easiest fight to get to, having to go through the Valkyrie squad amongst many Maliwan troops, but once you get there you can repeat it by only killing the bottom half and letting the top half take you. That way you only have to repeat the second phase of the takedown. Wotan is the only drop source for two notable SMGs, the Kive's Worth, which deals splash damage, and the Redistributor, which has a great synergy with Zane. Like the Valkyrie squad, you can also get Mayhem 4 items from this farm, and some base game gear will get dropped in there too. Moving on to Villa Ultraviolet and the Cartel event, which you can activate at any time from the main menu and pick up the quest from Maurice or Board Sanctuary. Once you've collected enough decoder rings from out in the wild, you'll be able to enter the passcode to access the villa. Roaming the grounds, you'll find 4 cartel mini-bosses. They can be found in one of these 4 locations, and it's random who shows up where. Another 2 will accompany Joey during the boss fight after you've obtained the mask, which again is hidden randomly in the villa. Some notable weapons locked to this event include the Fish Slap, Yellow Cake, OPQ system, and Needle Gun. Joey can drop all the cartel gear, but each mini-boss has a couple which they have an increased chance to drop. For maximum efficiency, you'll want to keep Joey alive and focus on the mini-bosses. Whether you clear the mini-bosses within the grounds and the ones during the fight on your next runs is up to you, but keeping Joey alive will allow you to avoid collecting the decoder rings and the mask again. Moving on to the True Trial of Discipline, which you can get the coordinates for after completing the main campaign around here in the Meridian outskirts. Trials offer 3 chances at loot: the enemies found within, the final boss, and the reward chest. On True Trial difficulty, that chest is guaranteed to drop legendaries, with a high chance of that being class mods and artifacts, regardless of completing any side objectives. And the final boss, in this case the Arbalist of Discipline, drops much better loot. That's because on True Trial mode, extra gear has been added to their loot pool at a 50% drop rate, and that includes the Cowson and Flipper, both top tier SMGs. This is a fantastic place to farm for them, often dropping multiple at once, and the guaranteed legendary chest is icing on the cake. Just make sure you bring something corrosive to make it a little easier on yourself. Moving on to Heavyweight Harker and Arms Race, home to some of the most powerful legendaries in the game. This farm is the most variable of the lot, but you have to persevere if you want that overpowered gear, which includes the Plasma Coil, Tizzy, Kick Charger, and Infernal Wish, just to name a few. There's 2 ways to farm the Stormblind complex. You either loot as many chest rooms as possible before the storm forces you to fight Heavyweight Harker, or you gear up to the minimal amount needed to defeat him. I prefer the latter approach, and a disciple of Iron Jesus will do the same. Rolling the dice at a 5.6 to 6.1% chance to get some of those overpowered gear. Some things to look out for when you're gearing up to make the fight go quicker are TDR SMGs, and grenade mods from the vending machine outside the arena can be invaluable. Next up, another proving ground. This one's the true Trial of Instinct, located within Wayward Tether, which you can get the coordinates for around here in Floodmoor Basin. During this proving ground, you'll be fighting the enemies of Eden 6 rather than Maliwan forces and a big old T-Rex at the end. That T-Rex is the Tyrant of Instinct, and like all proving ground bosses, has a 50% chance to drop top tier loot. In this case, that's the Backburner and Tizzy, two phenomenal bossing weapons. This is the best place to farm, especially for the Backburner, and I was getting twin Tizzies seemingly all of the time. The chest at the end has an increased chance to drop legendary class mods and artifacts, and the thieving jabbers and badass enemies throughout drop loot of their own. If you're looking to make your boss fights easier, there's not much better than this farm. Number 1, we're here, we made it, and the best legendary farming spot in Borderlands 3 is Kormash. You can find around here as part of the Bounty of Blood DLC in Ashfall Peaks. The Bounty of Blood DLC is home to some of the best weapons in the game, only really trumped by a few arms race legendaries and some of the OP gear in the director's cut. Kormash opens up a world of powerful legendaries at the fraction of the cost. There's the Root, Lightshow, Flipper, Gargoyle, even the Beacon and Unkempt Herald can all be found in this one straightforward farm. And what makes it even better is that you can proc the Shaluta with ease. 5 or so seconds into the fight, you can shoot one of the ads to proc the Shaluta and get even more of that beautiful Bounty of Blood gear. This is one target everyone can farm for some top tier loot.